You're lying.
It was not an earthquake. It wasn't a typhoon.
Because what's really happening is that you're hiding something out there. And it is going to send us back to the Stone Age.
Lucas here again for another movie review. Today we are talking about the very, very highly anticipated monster flick, Godzilla, directed by Gareth Edwards, starring Bryan Cranston, Aaron Taylor-Johnson, Elizabeth Olsen, and Ken Watanabe. Like most people, once I saw the trailer for this movie, I got incredibly excited. It looked big, it looked dark, it looked epic, and it looked like something that we really needed to have after that disaster, no pun intended, that was the 1998 Godzilla directed by Roland Emmerich. And after seeing all the trailers and all the actors that they got to be in this was by far one of my most anticipated films of the summer. What I think is cool on the part of Warner Brothers in this case is that they brought in a relatively unknown director in Gareth Edwards to do this movie, and his previous movie Monsters I've never seen, but was done on like a micro budget of $100,000, and he brings a very unique feel to this movie, and he makes a lot of unique choices, and the cinematography in this movie, I thought, especially during the fight scenes, was very unique. And the movie builds a lot of tension and a lot of build-up, and he does one of the things I think is probably the smartest thing in these type of movies is to hold off on showing the monster. I'll get to the monster in a minute, but also who I really enjoyed in the film was Bryan Cranston, although he is severely underused because he's only in about the first 25 to 30 minutes of this movie, and he by far is the best actor in this thing, and he brings a lot of humanity. I think he was probably the only character that I really connected to emotionally in the whole movie. And that brings up one of my biggest problems with this movie is, if not the biggest, is the human characters, because you have this great cast. You have Aaron Taylor-Johnson as your lead, you have Bryan Cranston, you have Ken Watanabe, you got Elizabeth Olsen, and all are given very little to do here. Aaron Taylor-Johnson is the protagonist of the movie, and I like the guy. I've liked him in past work. I really dig him as Kick-Ass, but in this movie he's just kind of a stoic, kind of blank slate, a military character, and out of all the characters to follow, he's the least interesting to me, and we unfortunately have to spend the most screen time with him. Elizabeth Olsen, who plays his wife, is given very little to do, although she is very good in her scenes. She's just kind of there to remind the audience that Aaron Taylor-Johnson has a family. And Ken Watanabe, all he really does in this movie is spout off dialogue, expositional dialogue, and stare off into space. And again, you could get anyone to do that. I don't know why you had to bring in someone the caliber of Ken Watanabe to do that. And I know you're probably thinking, this is a Godzilla movie, the humans should be second. What we really want to see is the monster action. And I completely agree with that, but when 2/3 of the movie is focused primarily on all these characters, you have to make them interesting, and they really don't here. Another problem that a lot of people seem to be having with this movie is that they hold off on showing Godzilla until the third act of the movie, which a lot of people seem to dislike, but I think that was one of the unique choices of this movie, was to hold off on showing him, and I think the movie does a good of enough job to whet your appetite with a couple of these teaser shots and shots of other monsters in the movie to keep you interested and keep the tension there, because if you overexpose the monster too early, it really loses its effect, and then once the third act of this movie comes, it hits. The last 20 minutes deliver completely. Everything I wanted that I saw in the trailer was in the last 20 minutes of the movie, and there were some scenes in here that had me cheering and had the audience cheering, and it was just pure movie magic. There was a couple scenes in this movie that kind of reminded me of what it would probably have felt like to see Jurassic Park for the first time in the theater. Godzilla looked great. I thought all his movements were extremely realistic and awesome, and his roar was amazing. The sound in this movie was just fantastic. So I thought everything I wanted was in the last 20 minutes of this movie, and unfortunately the road to get there is just okay. People, including myself, that are going to see the movie for the monster will be somewhat disappointed and yet fully satisfied, and everything that I really wanted in this movie was in the last act, and I think that the movie completely delivered on that aspect of what we want to see. Unfortunately, we have to spend an hour and a half of just so movie to get there, and unfortunately that kind of bogged this movie down a lot for me and made it somewhat of a disappointment for how high of expectations I had for it. Overall, I still had a good time. There was, again, fantastic moments in here, and I did dig the first half and especially the last half. It's just that middle act was very weak. So I'm going to have to give Godzilla 3 stars out of 5. That's my review of Godzilla. Let me know what you guys thought of the film. Did you think it was a smart decision on letting Godzilla sit out for a majority of the movie? Did you think that was an effective technique, or did it get on your nerves? Let me know what you thought of the human characters and if that bogged down your enjoyment of the film. And of course, if you like this review, you could subscribe for more, and I'll see you guys later.